But everybody, I want to make sure everybody knows when we get into this. Podcastmovement.com starts in 2 weeks. And that's
the 16th and 17th.
Us three and one other person are hosting that. I think we've got about 600 people coming so far, and that's in Dallas here, in town. So if you haven't got your tickets yet, you have 2 weeks to get them, and we're getting ready to be sold out. So jump on the board on that.
And if you can't go, we've still got the digital ticket, don't we? So we're going to do videos of all the sessions. So if you can't come for some reason, you can just watch. It'll take us a little while to get them up, but all the presentations, including the keynotes, are going to be available on video.
And also, I need someone to work at a booth of mine. I pay them $10 an hour if you got a kid or something. You know, a teenager, high school kid, that's who I usually get, are people like in theater class in high schools. So if anyone knows someone who wants to do $10 an hour for just standing there, just wearing that pickle outfit, let me know. And that's all I do, stand there wearing a pickle outfit for 2 days. So let me know if you know anyone. I need someone really bad. And you got anything, Dane, you got anything about the conference you want to say?
No, be there. Come on.
Either it's at the Weston Galleria just down the street from here, so it's gonna be awesome. I've got a bunch of, I don't know if you've noticed, I've been scrolling a bunch of local organizations, meetup groups, search engine people, social media marketing, things like this. If you're interested in looking and learning about search, internet marketing, SEO, these are wonderful groups. You can learn a lot. If there's a fee, they're usually like $5 or $10, although the DFW SEM is about $30 or $35 a meeting. But let me know, if you're interested in going to DFW SEM, let me know well ahead of time and I'll see if I can get you a free pass. So you can go to one of them and check it out. It's a really good organization. I had a thing for volunteers, but it looks like I am now, for our conference, we've got all our volunteers. Thanks to some people in this group, and I really appreciate what you did. Let me see if there's anything.
Oh, I got something also. I've got on my website, GaryLeland.com, I've started a new podcast, Gary Leland Show. I need people to ask me questions for my show. So go to my show and use my SpeakPipe tab on the right and ask me a question about using new media to sell stuff. So if anyone's got a question they can send me, I appreciate it.
Yeah, you didn't answer my question. I still want to know about sourcing for products.
Yeah, I did answer it.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it's on the show tonight.
Oh, okay.
Or it was on last week's show.
But I was the first person that called in with a question. I was first.
He's number one.
I was first.
He's a winner. So I'm going to let Mitch introduce the speaker while I get the camera ready.
Okay, so Joel is going to be talking about really rocking it when you're launching a podcast. Now, when did you launch? When did you launch? Relaunch? Is that's
Sure, yeah. May 12th.
May 12th, and he is already rocking it. He's got over 100 reviews on iTunes,
Yes, sir.
which is amazing.
#1 in all 3 categories.
#1 in their 3 categories.
Repeatedly.
This just started in May.
Awesome.
Okay, and he's had some amazing guests on the show, and you're doing it how many days a week?
We're doing 6 shows a week.
6 shows a week. And he is totally rocking it, and so I know that you guys all want to hear how he did it, and he is more than happy to share that information. So Joel?
Yeah, I couldn't admit. Everybody, thank you for coming out tonight. And Pei and I, my beautiful co-host and wife of 13 years, we've accumulated pretty much the equivalent of a PhD in podcast launching. And so when I sat down at my desk and I'm like thinking, got my big yellow pad out just like this gentleman has right here, I thought, okay, podcast meetup, what are we going to talk about? And then I kind of scribbled some notes and then pretended like I was in thought and scribbled a few more notes and pretended like I was in deeper thought. And then I thought, I don't want to give a speech. I want to add value. I mean, gosh, isn't that why we're here? To get some value, to learn some tips and tools and techniques that we can use as we launch or relaunch our podcast, as we figure out how to rock the ratings, how we put together the pieces so we can invite the guests on that we want to have on, and how we can also use some strategy to get those guests or our fans or our followers to become our promoters, our cheerleaders, and the people that are really helping us advance our show. And I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to provide value to people that are kind enough to come out on a Tuesday night. We all have a million things that we could be doing right now, but I wanted to really respect everyone's time and to be of most service that I can to you. So I was talking to a couple people that I met before the meeting this evening, and I said, I have zero material. So I'm going to just count on everyone and their questions. And any questions that you have as far as it relates to launching, rocking the ratings, booking high-profile A-list people, or turning those people, your guests, into your friends, your fans, your followers, and your promoters. Really, that's what we're here to offer tonight. So by a show of hands, how many people already have their podcast out? Okay, cool. About maybe half. And who is preparing to launch or thinking about preparing to launch? Okay, cool. About half. Thank you, everyone, for coming, because Pei and I, our goal is to provide maximum value for everyone that's here tonight, and to really get those questions answered. Pei and I launched our first podcast probably about 5 years. Would you say that about 5 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
5-6 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
We launched Finding Your Voice about that time, 5-6 years ago. And that was our very first podcast. And it was very, very unceremonious and very much not listened to. And, we tried and we tried to figure out, okay, what are we doing here? We had on guys like Darren Hardy and Mark Sanborn and Larry Wingett and top names, or at least what I thought were A-list and top name. And then I was sitting there, and then I'd be watching Libsyn. Then I'd hit refresh. Then I'd watch Libsyn. Then I'd hit refresh again, and it didn't move. And I thought, what am I not doing? Because I've got the A-list here. We've got the equipment. We went to the right training. We know the right people on the inside. But what aren't we doing right? And for the longest time, and I'll just be transparent with you, I thought it was me, and I thought it was us. I thought, we're not doing something right. There's something wrong with us, and it took me a long time for me to get over myself. But eventually, I did. Well, I just like to think that I did. And then I learned that the power is not in us, and the power is not totally in leveraging the popularity of your guest, but the power is in the people. And when I learned something very important, if you're taking notes, please write this down. The audience has all the power. Because the audience makes the decision to listen or to listen to another podcast. For a long time here, I thought I was the one in charge. I thought I was the one that had the power. I thought I was the one standing behind the microphone, which I was, but you know what? That really didn't mean a whole lot. Because the audience was the one that had all the power. I could only try to deliver the value. And once I realized that, then it started to make sense. And that's when I started to figure out, I don't have the biggest audience in the world, but I bet if I get enough people together in a room, I bet I can find enough people to help us, hit number one and new and noteworthy again and again and again, and to continue that trajectory upward and to the right, which is what we want to do. So one of the things that I figured out to do, and I did this in a couple of different situations, is I put together a launch team. And that's actually the first point, to launch or relaunch your podcast. And you can do this if you're brand new, just getting ready to launch, like my friends James and Daniel, or you can do it if you're getting ready for a resurgence or a revival of your podcast. It is putting together a launch team. And we had, how many people did we have, Peg? About 80, 90 people?
About 80.
On our
And by
launch-
the way, that's the same strategy that took his book last year to #1 on Amazon. So he just borrowed the same tip from that experience and took it to this success. And by that time, when we hit #1 on iTunes, we hardly had any social media following. We are working on that now, but back then, combining Twitter, Facebook, combined two of us, we had less than 2,000 following.
On Twitter.
And that was 3 months ago when we were launching.
Yeah. It's unbelievable the power in the people. And that's what I want to open this conversation with. Forming a launch team. How do you form a launch team? What do you do with a launch team once you've assembled that group? And how do you mobilize them? Because that's one of the things that I figured out is getting a room full of 80 to 90 people is great. But if you don't know how to mobilize them, call them to action, get them to help you, then it's going to be a very limited success. See, one of the things that I've learned is that people want to help you. They really want to help you. Most people, for the most part, very good-hearted and have good intentions. However, people also have, I found, jobs, kids, softball, bowling, ballet, second jobs, third jobs, and on and on and on. So to mobilize my lunch team, I learned that we had to make it third grade simple for people to help us. See, they wanted to help us, but they needed more direction than just me saying, check out my show, or do what you can, or give it a listen. And when I put those pieces together, that's when it really took off. And people were able to look down our list, and they were able to do exactly what I asked them to do. So let's talk about launch team. Okay. Does anyone have a question on launch team, where we can start? Yes, ma'am.
I mean, how do you start it? How do you put it together?
Okay, that's a great question. Our question was, how do you start a lunch team? Here's how I started it. I called and emailed every single person that knew me. Friends, family, neighbors, people that I talked to at work, people that kind of understood what I was getting ready to do. And here's a specific answer to your question. When you send your first email, when you get home tonight, about trying to get people to be on your lunch team, the very first thing that you do is you don't lay out the entire plan, what you're trying to do with them. Like, yeah, I'm launching this podcast, and here's my vision, and this is what I want to do with it, and we're going to make money, or whatever. You just want to say, I'm getting ready to start this podcast. Love to have you on my lunch team, and here's the best sentence in the whole world. I'll get more info to you later. And that was gold. When I learned how to say that, then people were like, of course I'll help. And so I didn't have to paint the entire picture for them. I just asked for help, and I said, I'll get more info to you. And that's all I said. And because I understood that if I got the yes, then I can work with it. Then I can figure out what I'm going to do. But I needed that yes first. And painfully, and this is painful, so don't do this. I've gone through many times trying to get people to see what I see. You know how much fun and aggravating that can be. But I tried that for a long time, just because I don't know any better. And eventually, I learned that, you know what? Give more information to you. Best answer that I learned in that for that. Did that help? That question? Okay. Do you have a podcast out?
I do. It's called The Starters Club.
I'm sorry?
The Starters Club.
The Starters Club? What's your podcast?
What's it about? It's about, on Tip Tuesdays, I do business fundamentals, so we just break down the basics. Like, we were just talking about one, it was like how to do Instagram. And then on Fridays, I interview entrepreneurs, and just, their journey, and it's really about how did you start? Because that's what I always find people's biggest question is, I don't know where to start. So that's why I always ask you, like, where do we start with that? But, so it's like, where did they start, how they've grown, obstacles, stuff like that.
Sure, absolutely. I would aim very, very high if you're thinking about putting together a lunch team. For my book launch, which I did right before the podcast, I got about 122 on that. And one of the reasons that you want to aim high is because some of the people, for whatever reason, will not be able to fully carry out for a variety of reasons. But you always want to aim high with that. Great question. Who else? Talk about launch team. Yes, sir.
What do you need on your team, or what roles are we trying to fill here?
Okay, fantastic. For the launch team people? Okay, very good. So now he's asking about practicals. What do we need? Well, you want your launch team to spread the message of your show. And if you go to my website, I've got an opt-in. You can get that. If you don't want to opt in, just send me an email. And I'll send you the template. In fact, I'll do that for everyone. Send you the template of the email that I send out. But what I did, in a nutshell, just to make it easy, the easiest way that I found for people to help me on social media was just to follow me. Follow me and retweet, repost, just redo what I've done. And here's why I learned that is actually gold. That takes the brain work out for people. So they don't have to think about, well, what am I going to say about this show? Or how am I going to promote this show? And in the template email, one of the things that I say is the easiest way to follow me is like my page, so I'm getting a like. And when you see my post, and I was posting 6 times a day during my lunch period. And I said, when you see my post, share it. That's all you need to do. Click share, share it with your circle, and it happened over and over and over again. So you want people to share your content. Another thing that I ask people to do is to email their list of supporters. If your list is 100, 200, or 1,000, just to email them. And for my list, I recruited everybody on my list to be on my lunch team. Some said, sure, of course I'll help. And some didn't. It didn't really matter to me, but I wanted to give them that opportunity. And I did. I emailed everyone the schedule of activities. It was a 2-week schedule that I had for my lunch plan. And I emailed everyone. And some people were like, jumping on board, and some people didn't. It didn't really matter. I just wanted to see who was going to be able to help me. So, sharing content, and basically I just asked people to follow. And what else did I say? I said something else.
Like your
Yes.
Like share your content.
Yes, sir.
So when you said you shared your content, did you already have 2 weeks of episodes recorded so they knew it was coming out, or?
Sure. We had 30 episodes recorded,
Okay, before you started?
but we had a lot in the can.
Okay.
But we didn't release, released maybe 3 on the first day. So,
Did we release 3 on the first day?
we released on the 6th, but we didn't tell people until maybe the 10th, because we want to make sure iTunes get
Right.
all the links right. Otherwise, people are gonna get there like, where does it go? Yeah,
Right, that's right.
yeah, we confirm it really, iTunes got it in, that link really works. And then, did I answer your question? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, to really get technical on this, when you're creating a post that you want people to share, be it on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, were you making like fancy graphics that people would want to share that you had some of these?
Do you want to answer this?
Yes, so that actually ties in Randy's question too.
That's a great question.
We didn't just post, for example, there are only 3 shows there, but we also post some quotes they talked about, or post a picture of us in the studio and talked about what the show's about. So we had a variety of posts on Facebook. Back then, we weren't smart enough to use Twitter. And by the way, I hope if I have time later, talk
Okay.
a little
Twitter
about
strategy,
Twitter.
sure.
Because Facebook, it was great to get our words out because it's kind of, Facebook is a place, I'm not sure how much action people takes, but it's almost for show.
It was great social proof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, if you have your link, right, the link to your show,
Sure.
well, it'll pop up your artwork of your show.
Right.
Well, that at least for me, that gets really boring if every artwork is the same.
True.
So what Pay did, and we have our virtual assistant doing this too, is we make an artwork for every single episode. And we put the name of our show on it, we put the person's picture, and we put the person's name. Those are the musts that we have. Here's why. People love seeing their picture on the internet, and people love seeing their name.
Okay,
So
so,
they're-
like, I like what Dan did on Entrepreneur Showdown as well. He had something similar,
Right.
and it's just similar to that. I think Gary, even on his or fast pitch, he's got something a little bit, some of it's more similar than others, but yeah, those are the sort of examples you're talking about, or? Is it-
Yes.
Okay.
I
And
believe
in the
so.
beginning, I also, next to their expert picture, I put their quote, like a real short, nice, inspirational sentence they said. And people might share just because of that. I
Right.
mean, any publicity, really.
Some kind of trigger.
Is this what you're talking about, these?
Oh, yeah, yeah. They're really easy, just a template.
Yeah, it's just a template.
Yeah, and I was looking through
Thank you.
and, just may have different colors, but the themes kind of, the simple themes are.
Yeah,
Oh, I like that.
yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things that Pat Flint is a master at, creating different picture posts. That's where we learned it, frankly.
Okay.
And Pat did it so he could just increase that social action.
He's had a little bit of success with it too, it looks like.
Yeah, I think he's doing okay. Okay, who else?
I've got one.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Getting back to what you said, and this is more of a technical thing, you put it out there, but you didn't post it because you wanted a few days to get the bugs out of it. Is that a typical problem? And is 3 days a good, I mean, because
Are you talking about social
the
media?
Apple
Or
links,
iTunes.
you were talking about the Apple links a while ago.
The
iTunes, he's talking about iTunes.
iTunes, yeah.
iTunes usually takes 3 days, but recently it's been up to a week. Some people have been
Oh,
complaining.
wow.
So if you're going to be launching soon, try and give yourself, I don't know if you want to give yourself a whole week, but be prepared that it may take a
Also,
week.
they
You don't want
ask,
to launch until iTunes, it's in iTunes.
Right, yeah, most likely.
they
Yeah,
ask
once
you at least have 2 shows in the can. So you don't want to just put it in there, wait till they got you started.
Right.
You want to have maybe 2 just in case they
Okay.
prove, yeah.
Did we help?
Well, yeah, and one other question, you were talking about the number of your team members, you
Yes, sir.
said, 80 to 90. Do you have any kind of numbers on what percentage of that you can expect to fulfill or participate? I mean, is it pretty low?
Yeah, actually, no, I don't think I had 100, but pretty darn, between 90 and 100.
Okay.
I had very close relationships. If you didn't hear, he asked me the percentage of active participants in my launch team. And it was somewhere between 90 and 100, because I had good relationships.
Okay, so the relationship you had with them prior to that helped you get
Yeah,
more
absolutely.
participation? Okay.
That's what I was gonna, I'm sorry.
I mean, do you spread that from, say, 100 to 300 by asking some of the people that are on your launch team to also have launch teams or people that?
No, I didn't do that.
Okay.
I just didn't. But I guess I could have. I just didn't think about it.
Honestly, most of these people, they weren't influencers like have a big list. These
Yeah.
are just people.
Yeah,
Right.
that's true. That's a good point. Most of the people on our launch team, we'll talk about using influencers in a second. Most of the people on our launch team, 100 followers on Twitter, 500 followers on Twitter, not big lists, just average people that I knew from church and Christian.
Of your normal daily participation, just thinking about, because everybody's list is going to be different based on their own podcast and how they interact with the community. I'm thinking about my listeners and that sort of thing. So on a daily basis, now I guess you could say, what sort of interaction are you getting with your listeners? Are you getting 10 comments per blog post or per episode? Or are you getting 100% of your listeners leaving comments and stuff also? In other words, is there a relationship there?
Yeah, I do get a few comments. I think overall for podcasters, at least in my experience, that there's not a whole lot of interaction on the actual show notes page.
Right.
But I get them every once in a while. Remember I read you out loud an email that I got last night.
Yeah,
Like a real email.
or on Twitter somehow.
Right. We get, Peg gets more Twitter.
But
Right.
you know, another aspect, we are looking to direct people more to our website now. In the past, we kind of just, because during launch time, we try to get people listen on iTunes. Because if they come to our website, sometimes that if they use their mobile, that play button is not very friendly. We are tweaking that now.
Right.
Also, Pat Flynn just released his smart podcast plugin, and that I'm looking into that too. That way, we get both listening and website conversion at the same time.
But for the launch, we wanted like the download.
Right.
We wanted the
Yes.
quantifiable number. That's why we try to direct people to the iTunes, as much as possible. Plus, we also wanted the rating and the review. And so,
Exactly.
and those are the three ingredients to the secret sauce to get in new and noteworthy. A few people ask me about that. Is ratings, reviews, and subscribers. There's the fourth ingredient, downloads, but that's kind of a given. Right there. Who else? Talk about launch team.
Can I just mention one
Yes.
thing about the launch team member? He even recruit, because he goes to a coffee shop a lot. He recruits people serving coffee. Say, hey, check out my podcast.
Yeah, everybody has an iPhone. So the next time you're in Starbucks, just say, hey, let me show you something. And then flip over once, podcast app is right there. And I mean, when we were launching, I had no shame. People at our coffee shop. And
But is that the goal for your launch teams, to get as many people on board when you're first getting started?
Absolutely.
Or just stick to your close knit people that know around you?
Get as many people as you can that will give you a yes. And the relationship counts on that. The deeper your relationship, the more likely they are.
Okay.
And you want to be crystal clear, specific. Email me, and I'll send you my template.
Right.
And what I did for, we had a 2-week launch window. And I outlined everything. And we wrote everything. Tweets, Facebook posts. We even wrote sample iTunes reviews. Because we wanted to make it, again, third grade simple for people to help us. And I think I've got 117 reviews maybe. And I think I only saw 2 that were used for my examples. But I think when people read the reviews that I write, then they go, oh yeah, I can write that, or something like that.
They actually very intrigued by what we wrote. They said, hey, if that's the value
Yeah.
of this podcast provides, then let me check it out.
Okay, now you're giving away my secrets.
Oh, well, it's
But that's okay. That's how,
Sharing.
actually, she's right. That's how I wrote the review, based on what I wanted the listener to get out of the review. And yeah, she's exactly right. So when people read the review, they're like, maybe I do need to listen to that podcast. So she's absolutely right.
All right, so I just want to, so on your team, you're asking them to follow you on social media, like your page, share your posts, download your, and subscribe to your podcast,
Yes, sir.
rate it, review it.
Yes, sir.
There's a list of about 15, 20, 30 things.
And I list everything out. And I give them timelines and dates.
So it's like, almost like an assignment. Is there a reward or most points to doing something like that?
Well, that's where your relationship comes in. That's why you want to ask people that like you.
That's
That's
So
why,
it's just a list of things that they could choose from?
I'm sorry?
Well, you want to do them all, so.
I want to do them all.
But some are gonna do some, and some are gonna do.
Yeah, it wasn't a punitive situation. Well, most of them were. But yeah, once again,
Came out with a serious 2-week plan.
And thank you for listening. Yeah, back with more info. Because what I've learned, people want to say yes. They want to be agreeable. So if you're excited and you say, oh my gosh, I've got this skateboarding business podcast that's coming out in 2 months. Would you help me spread the word? And then they're going to see the excitement in your eyes, and they're going to go, oh yeah, absolutely. Tell me about it. What do I do? Get back to you in a couple of weeks. Is that okay? And then they'll say yes. Yes, sir.
So you kind of led into my question a little bit by talking about skateboarding, because a lot of us have very narrow niche targets versus something like yours that can appeal to everybody. So skateboarding, I mean, that would be a great one. How do you, because not everybody's necessarily excited about skateboarding.
Right.
But they're excited about you.
Yeah.
They're excited about you.
They're gonna help you promote your thing.
Well, we need to make more friends then.
One new friend.
These two guys right here are going to do exactly that, so they'll be your friends.
I'll volunteer.
Yes, ma'am.
So you led me up to the point you made. How long should you do this? Because I'll be honest, I'm gonna start podcasting and threw something up, and I'm like, oh crap, I gotta keep this up. So definitely did not do
2
your
weeks.
approach.
I
2
did 2
weeks,
weeks.
you think? Like to do the whole launch period and get people excited, or you?
Well,
No, I did, yeah. Can I answer?
sure.
Thank you. The plan that I'm talking about
Yeah.
was laid out and was done in 2 weeks.
Okay.
But we started putting together the launch team, what, 2-3 months prior?
Yeah, I'm thinking 1 month, because we didn't want it to relaunch
That's
the
right.
show for a while.
Yeah, so we put together the team because we wanted to know who we had to work with
Yeah.
first. And then once we had an idea of the team, about 80-ish people, then I started to create the posts, the instructions, the flow chart that I wanted them to follow. And I wanted to see who I had to work with first.
Okay.
And y'all were already sitting on those 30 episodes? You were already sitting on
At
them?
some point.
They weren't released, they were just recorded.
Right, you had them ready to be...
They were all edited and
Yeah,
arranged.
no, not really.
Oh, no.
No. We- Yeah.
There was content there.
There was content there.
And then you release one every week to
Like you
iTunes, or
had
did you?
3, and then we gotta make
Just
more.
our desired days.
We're going to do it 6 times a week.
So, that's starting out new. A lot of us, again, have podcasts, so relaunch. Or
Right.
how do you do that once you're in the middle, or 15, 20, 30, 40 episodes in? Can you do the same thing?
Absolutely. The new and noteworthy window is the first 8 weeks of when iTunes approves your feed. They approved ours on May 5th. And our launch wasn't until May 12th, but it's 8 weeks. So if you miss that window of new and noteworthy, which frankly we did in our first podcast, Finding Your Voice, we started out at a very slow trickle and got worse. I mean, we got to, it was like $20, $25, $30 a day, way back in the day, because we didn't know any better. So what we did, and this is something for you to think about, is we turned it off. As painful as it was, because we knew we had at least 2 or 3 subscribers, we still turned it off. It's not that bad, but we still turned it off, and we relaunched because we had a plan. And that was painful. That was a painful decision.
So you
But
started
you know
a new
what?
feed.
We got back and more the subscribers, the 2 that we lost. We got them back.
And the relaunch under a different name?
Well, relaunch is a new name.
Really? That is the new name. What? Oh, that's right, because it was something different before.
It was Finding Your Voice.
Yes.
And somebody had a question.
It was a whole new feed.
It was a new feed.
Right.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Couldn't you just because I know it has something to do with subscriptions too, like you really want to push, and what if you did like a whole campaign around this big launch team and just trying to get people to go subscribe or review, and I bet you iTunes would notice that. But I know you're not the 8 weeks up, but wouldn't you still get noticed back on iTunes a little bit? If all
Well,
of a
you
sudden
could, yeah,
have this
because
resurgent?
you could get bumped into the what's hot category.
Oh, okay.
Because what's hot is what is available after the new and noteworthy window is gone. But you know, even Jamie Tardy turned off her switch #1, and turned on Eventual Millionaire. Not a lot of people do that. And, Jamie's huge. I mean, she's gonna be a pod movement, and she turned off her first switch because she wanted to relaunch, so to speak. And Eventual Millionaire, that's the one that really just put her in another stratosphere. And and there's other people too that relaunched the podcast with a new feed, and so just so that they can take everything that they've learned. And the people that love you are gonna follow you. It was amazing. We were watching Libsyn, and those numbers and subscribers just went from here to here, and it was quick. I want to talk about how to use your influencers next on your promotional team, but I don't want to miss anybody. Do we have another question? Talk about launch team?
So your launch team is a virtual team, basically. It's not, restricted to locally where you're gonna put 80 people in a room and talk to them. It's all
Yeah, it was
done by email.
from everywhere. Do you have your podcast out already?
Sure, yes.
Okay, fantastic. Do y'all interview people?
Mhm.
Okay, fantastic. Who do you interview?
You?
Awesome.
Next.
Okay, great. Okay, so here's what you do. So here's how you hijack my audience. Okay, so let's say I'm an expert, and these two folks are going to have me on their team. Here's what you do. Always, always, always say, hey Joel, hang out with us for a few minutes after we record. And you know the magic of what happens, right? And then all of a sudden, after a 20-minute, 30-minute podcast, you're best friends. And word for word, here's what I said to every expert I talked to. After we get done with the recording and we could breathe normally, I'd say, so what are you working on that you're excited about? And of course, they would tell me about their book or their speaking tour, their promotion or whatever. And then, guess what they asked me? What am I working on? Well, what are you working on, Joel, that you're excited about? And then I said, funny you should ask. And that's how I got people, influencers, to help me launch my book, which hit #1 3 times on Amazon, and then helped me launch my podcast. Because I said, what are you working on? They told me. And I said, when's your book coming out or whatever? They tell me, and I said, we'll do another show, we'll promote it, and get it out there. And then, never fails. People will say, what are you doing? And I'd say, you know what? I'm really excited. Pay and I are doing this brand new relaunch with our podcast. Would you help us spread the word? Even to first-time guests that I didn't even know, just because I don't know anybody. And they're like, sure, okay. And that's how. And that's how you hijack the audience of someone else. Okay, I bet there's questions on hijacking audience of influencers. Anybody? Who else interviews on the show? You do? You do? Okay. Who do you interview, Christian?
Well, it's the one I'm about to launch. That's why I'm especially interested right now.
Okay.
I just interviewed Daniel J. Lewis the other day.
Okay.
And it was really great. And I made sure to finish. I scheduled an hour, spent about 10 minutes before, and then I had about 15 minutes afterwards to just talk to him about, well, how did the show go and what are you doing? And he was very forthcoming. It was great. Like you said, I missed the opportunity. I told him I would let him know when it launches, and he said he would be sure to share it. But I wasn't so calculating about it like we're talking about here, which is great. I'll make sure to do that more.
Well, yeah, it's just reciprocity, because you always offer value first, and the fact that you're recording and going to promote them on their show, that's value. And then when you ask them about what's coming up, and then offer to heap on more value, then they're going to come back and they're going to reciprocate. That's how you turn your influencers into your promoters. And I don't think I had heard any no's. In fact, I heard one no, in the whole process of doing that. And I was like, okay. But it worked wonders for me. Okay, here's for the influencers. Let's see, who was on my podcast as an influencer? Like I don't know.
Mark Schulman.
Yeah, Mark Schulman. Who said Mark Schulman?
You were.
For the influencers, you asked me how long this process was?
Yeah.
For the influencers, I did 2 days. For the lunch team, I did 2 weeks for a plan. Because, I focused everything on just 2 days for the A-list people, or whom I considered was an A-list. So it was short, condensed. But we had hit multiple number ones by that time, we got there.
So you're giving the influencers a plan as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, because influencers are more busy than the average folk. But they got a 2-day plan. Influencers got a 2-day plan.
How many actions were on that 2-day plan?
Let's see.
Hey, can we get a copy of it?
Yeah, email me.
What is it?
Here you go.
Well, we're gonna have a podcast, so.
Talk to your wife or?
She knows where I live. But, yes, to answer your question.
I think, can I add something real quick? I didn't think about this before. Maybe that is why you recorded 30 episodes, just so you can recruit all of them on your team?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. I didn't think about that.
She already knew it. She wanted to know if you did.
Well, it's funny. I learned that during my book launch, which is October last year. And people were just so willing to help. And so I immediately learned that if I ever want to meet a friend, then I just invite them on to the invite them on the podcast, and instantly they're your friend, and then they'll let you guest blog. I mean, I did that all over the place. They'll spread the word, and then when you do a show with them, then they'll spread the word, and then you do another show with them, and they're great repeat customers. So, okay, influencers. Sure. Who's next? Who's got a question on influencers?
There's one thing, a couple people with extremely high Twitter follower, and they end up maybe share it once and no longer interested in, they're busy. And we appreciate them just being on our show, honestly. But sometimes the way, I don't want to tag them, because that's, for me to mention them many times just to get their attention. I don't want to do that either. But for for example, a guest, Sean Stevenson, he's promoting his book, and he had, we did an awesome show with him, and his book is Get Off Your Butt, it's B-U-T. And I find out he hashtagged that. So on our show, when I promote our show, I hashtag Get Off Your Butt. So on Twitter, so obviously people looking for that will find our show. So just, different ways of using their
the power of the hashtag is incredible. It still blows me away. And it's, like Kay said, sometimes you don't even have to tag your guy or a person, but just put the right hashtag in there, and it'll get picked up. Okay.
So when you're interacting with these influencers, are you trying to extract anything else out of them? I mean, obviously you're interviewing them, so you're asking a lot of questions there. The things I thought of, but I always feel like I wish I had more experience so I could go back and interview Daniel J. Lewis again, which I guess I could later. But I asked him how did the interview go? Was there things I should have done better? That sort of stuff, so that he knows I want to be better. I mean, he teaches podcasting, for goodness sake. But I mean, when you're wanting to launch your show and wanting to get their help, is there something that you're kind of leading them down that path as well, aside from just outright asking them, please promote me?
No, and that's a great question. Here's what I learned. And when I was putting together my lunch team, I had to have a guest on. In fact, he's a repeat guest, Joe Calloway. And he wrote Becoming a Category of One. Incredible book. And he's become a good friend of mine. I asked him a couple years ago, I said, Joe, how do I eloquently and diplomatically ask A-list people to help me, to promote my stuff, to email their list, whatever. And then I was silent, and I watched him go like this, and then I went like that, And then I thought about how ridiculous that question was that I just asked him. And then I thought, or then I asked him, I said, Joe, do I even need to be eloquent and diplomatic? And he said, no. You need to be 100% clear what you want people to do. And he said, and 99% of the people will help you. And then Joe asked me, he said, you know why they'll help you? And I said, no, Joe, why don't you tell me? And Joe said, because they asked for help when they were just starting. And that's when I started to get confident, to ask people that I didn't even know at the end of the show, you know, will you help me? And I got one no, but that's it. Because Joe just said, he just said, be clear. And that's why I have a plan for my influencers and my launch team people. Because I want to be very, very clear. I don't want to just ask them, please help, or please share, or leave a rating when you have time. But I mean, when I even had the time when to leave a rating, you know, within 3-4 hours, wasn't to the second. But I was very, very clear. Yes, sir.
So you're asking them to share in the success of the program?
Yes. Ask me that again?
You're asking them to share in the success of your launch?
Yes.
That's key.
Yes.
That's huge right there. Giving them a list to do, but everybody wants to be a part of something successful.
Yes.
So that's a big key to what you're doing there.
And that's perfect. And yeah, please email me or get my opt-in, and I'll give you all the templates that I use. But one of the very first the very first statement I said in my email is, Pei and I are on fire, excited about our brand new show, and we've been feverishly, and I use that word, it's hard to spell, but I use it. We've been feverishly scheduling guests, producing shows, and writing killer content so we could knock it out of the park on iTunes. Got to be clear. I had a slow trickle before, and it was painful several years ago when we launched the Finding Your Voice. And every day looking at the needle that didn't move was just, anyways. So, yeah, what he said. Let your enthusiasm come through your conversations, your emails, pretty much all the touch points. And like he mentioned, people want to be a part of something that means something. And you believe in your podcast or your video cast or your blog. If you didn't, you wouldn't be here. So yeah, communicate that. Very well said. Yes?
Just a quick question. We have a large database that we're going to poach from. My question is you capture email addresses and you put out before you actually do a podcast, kind of tease them with a little bit of maybe 15 or 20 seconds?
I thought about that
as an email that goes out before the podcast is available?
I thought about that and I toyed with it, but no. It was just extra work. And our frequency, I know not everybody can do this, but our frequency is every day, except for Sunday. So I didn't really see the need for that. Yes, sir.
And is it a canned message that you're sending to everybody, or is it personal? Or for a group of, for
what
your
is it?
launch team?
For what, I'm sorry?
Your launch team?
It is, yeah, it's canned. I mean, there's our name.
I guess,
I don't send out blasts. I generally send out either in a newsletter format, which is a blast, or personal emails, even though that's painful too. But I send out personal emails just because Pei and I have seen that people actually read them and even respond to them. But like everyone, or most people in this room, I've sent out a blast before and see the 19% and 20% open rate, which just kills me. So I know that even though I hate doing copy paste, like everyone else does, that's what gets attention. So, but it is canned. It does say the same thing.
Right, I'm talking about from like your influencer compared to like actual someone that like is a personal friend or a family member that when you're starting your launch team.
Yeah, generally it's the same.
Okay.
For an influencer or an A-lister, it might be a little bit different. And sometimes I like if I have a personal relationship, like you and I have a personal relationship right now, so I would probably put a sentence or two, like, you know, how's that skateboard podcast coming, or something like that. Yeah, so I tweak it a little bit, and you can do it through just your regular email, but you wouldn't be able to do it in a newsletter. At least I don't know how. Sir?
It's a question. How are you doing 6 to 8? Because do you have another job, or?
No, it's not full-time.
Is it full-time? Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Was it before?
Let's see. Well, I was doing coaching for a long time, and so I did that a lot during my day.
You finished the last client maybe a month ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. He kind of weaned out a little bit.
Yeah, little by little.
But we do recordings on Fridays only, so we don't record and publish every day. Recording Friday, everything's in the queue by Saturday night. And then, so, you know, the next week's show is automatic.
Yeah, we've already got, through the rest of the week, everything's loaded in wherever it needs to load. And that frees up our weeks to market, to spread the word, to come and speak and do things of that nature. That's your time, regardless of how many shows that you're going to do. That's your time. We do all of our recording on Friday. We start at 11:30 and we go to about 5. And we just knock it out. And we're blurry-eyed at the end, but we're done with that. And then Saturday, I'll go to the coffee shop, write show notes. Pay will create artwork or edit, something like that. And pretty much at the end of the day, then God willing, we have Lipson loaded up and we're ready for the following week. But not everybody can do that. For brand new podcasters, my suggestion is start small, and then you can grow your podcast. You don't have to start with 6 or 7 a week. But if you can become rock star good at doing like 1 a week or 2 good a week, you can always grow and expand. But it hurts like hell when you have to go like that with your show and with something that you're so passionate about. So, yes, sir.
Do you think you could be releasing too few, 1 a month? You know, is it like?
Sure. That's a good question. You want to be in contact with your audience, and I would say at the minimum, do 1 a week. That actually brings up a great question. Pei and I used to do a live radio show, Monday through Friday. Was it 7 o'clock at night, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. And a lot of the callers that we'd get, they would call in, and they would be on-fire entrepreneurs, excited about, you know, fitness or coaching or finances or whatever. And they repeatedly ask the same question. They'd say, you know, how do I do this and really get some traction? Because there's podcasting, there's blogging, there's YouTube, there's LinkedIn, there's groups, there's all this stuff. And the advice that Pei and I would give over and over again is take your favorite piece of media. It might be podcasting, it is for me. It might be video casting. That's fine if it is. Doesn't make you a bad person. It might be blogging. You know, take your very favorite piece of media, whatever that is, and become rock star good at your one piece of media. And then grow from there. Amy Porterfield gave me that advice. Some people might recognize her name. Facebook Queen. And that stuck. And she's been on my shows. It's been a while. But that advice just resonates with me. Just become so good, like Steve Martin said, they can't ignore you, whatever your media is. And then, like I was saying to this gentleman, you can always grow. You can always test the waters in another platform once you've mastered one. But don't spread yourself too thin, which is what I did for years. I would try to write a blog, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, now I gotta send a tweet. Wait a minute, I gotta do some artwork over here. And, oh my gosh, I'm behind on my podcast over here. And for the first few years of my business, it was absolutely excruciating and exhausting too. But once we finally figured out, and it was just a science experiment, of what makes me come alive and what brings my wife to life as well. Once we figured out what that was for us, then we started to gel. And then we were able to start doing live shows and increase our show frequency and things of that nature.
How many people did you originally invite to your team? And then how many accepted? And how many of them actually did any work?
Okay. I put the lunch team together for my book launch, and I had about 130 people on the book launch team. So I already had that team in place. So when it came time to do my podcast, all I had to do was call it. So what that means is if you put together a launch team right now from scratch, which remember I did start from scratch for the book, if you put together your launch team right now, then for whatever your product is moving forward, it might be your first book or your first ebook or your first video training program, your launch team is already going to be in place. And that's what I learned. I put together, it was about 130. And when I saw how successful that was, then basically the same thing in the podcast. I would say I saw so much activity continuously on social media over and over and over again. I've got complaints, and we hit our first #1 I think within 4 days, and then all 3 categories several times. But a lot of people, and here's what's fun: some people still are sharing my stuff that were on my launch team. I mean, I'm in week 12, and so that plan is over. But some people, because they get in the habit of sharing, and so they continue to share, they continue to comment, and they continue to like, and I don't correct them.
Is that continuing to build your audience?
Yes. Good question. Did I answer? Okay. What else? This is fun. I could talk podcast forever. That's my wife. Yes,
So,
sir.
you have a book and a podcast, both, and they're similarly related, obviously. So if you're going to, let's say you wanted to start or write a book on skateboarding, would you go to that same launch team?
Yes. Why do you think I would?
It's just a different topic.
They believe in you.
They believe in what you're
Not
talking
yourself.
about.
The answer is obvious. Because they bought me. And look, please get that. They bought you. Here's what that means. That means you don't have to tell them about this wild and wacky idea that nobody except the people in this room understands or even cares about. You don't even have to. Because if you've got people at church, at work, at school, your neighbors, your family members that believe in you and want to contribute to your success, that's where you start. That's how you start to grow this. And then it'll grow organically. But you've got to be on fire about your idea. Like skateboarding, like these guys are. That's all these guys talked about. And that's cool. That's cool. You've got to be on fire, excited about it, and ready to share your content. And this is what I mean by this, Christian. Because sometimes people, with the best of intentions, they mistake what they know for what they should podcast about. Here's what that looks like. Let's say you're a math professor, so you know a lot about math. And you do a podcast on that. That would be cool if that fired you up. But what if you hated math? But you still try to do a podcast because you were mistaking, well, I know a lot about this stuff, so I better do a show about it. Instead of taking something that you're excited about, like model airplane building, or skateboarding, or gardening, or business, or whatever, and doing your podcast about it. See, you want to be so excited that you can talk for hours and hours and hours about whatever it is of your podcast. It doesn't necessarily have to be related to what you're real knowledgeable about, because there's a lot of things that we all know. But you want to get something that you can really, people will see your enthusiasm.
Sponsors.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, can you go and get sponsors before you broadcast, or go ahead because you have like a narrow and deep market? Can you go and get sponsors to sponsor your podcast before you start or before you do a launch?
You can. It's probably going to be tough.
Oh, okay.
Unless you have sponsors already built in.
Oh, okay.
If you have built-in sponsors, then yeah, that might be an avenue that you can explore. But until you're proven, it's going to be really, really tough. So what I would encourage you to do is build your audience. Okay. There's three things. I like to draw it in kind of overlapping circles, if you know what that looks like. And my wife argues with me. She says it's more of a flow chart, whatever. But it comes down to three things. Building your audience, which will build your business, which will build your show. And those three things work together. You can put them in whatever order that you want to. But if you build your show, that'll build, like doing something you're excited about. I said that out of order the first time. If you build your show, that'll build your audience. This is the right order. And then if you build your audience, then the business will take care of itself. I got it right. Did that help, by the way?
It's a flow chart.
Probably not more confusing? I'm good. Sign up for my course and I'll. Yes, sir.
Did you, before the book, did you plan, you were doing life coaching before?
I was.
You said, that's it, I'm gonna do podcasting to support myself for the next forever.
Well, I weaned myself. I weaned myself a little bit on it and still take take one or two clients.
There's no guarantee of income.
Correct.
So you have to just, like you said, get your passion, get what you hear in your voice, and just stick with it.
But now we are looking into, okay, what product, we have 4 ideas on what product we're gonna have now.
Next.
And we're in the middle of making them happen already. So it's.
One at a time.
Right.
Yes.
One at a time.
Right.
So is most of your revenue from sponsorships on your podcast?
But right now, we're not, the podcast is not profitable.
Okay.
Right now. We're in audience building mode.
Okay.
And that's what Pei and I have agreed that we're going to, that's the season that this show is in. Because it goes back to that flow chart or that Venn diagram where I lost her. We're trying to build the show so that we can build the audience, and then that will build the business.
Now, John Lee Dumas didn't start monetizing Entrepreneur on Fire for 6 months.
Right.
It was just build the audience and then worry about monetizing.
And that's what we, in a heated debate, no, in heated fellowship, that's what we finally
How
decided.
big is-
You know what, we're gonna start with building the audience, because without an audience, you got nothing.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yes, ma'am.
I was just gonna talk about sponsorships, so just to a point, it depends on how specialized you are too, and if anybody else is doing it out there. I think that's a pretty big key, because I hate my boyfriend right now, but in a good way. He's a chiropractor, he's very specialized in applied kinesiology, and he's creating this whole, because I'm forcing him to, creating this whole podcast, where he's talking strictly to other doctors. He already has a company waiting to write him a check. He has 0 viewers, 0 listeners, 0 downloads, and this company's like, you get this podcast up, we are writing a check for you every month, or every week, or whatever. So if you're very specialized, you can get a sponsor like that, nobody's doing what you're doing.
Yeah, every situation
Yeah.
is definitely different. Here's the thing about, I'll be right there, about sponsorship. Now, sponsorship is definitely a revenue model, but John Lee Dumas, yeah, he gets sponsorship dollars, as does Michael O'Neill and many other names that we're all familiar with. However, the lion's share of their money comes from their programs, their masterminds, their projects. So, yeah, it might be cool, and it might fit your show to have a sponsor right at the beginning, or to have an end of show read. And if you're getting paid for that, more power to you. But remember, most of the lion's share is going to come from your mastermind program, or your live event, or affiliate sales also. Where you come from? I saw somebody's hand.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, sir.
When you say build audience, how big does the audience need to be before you can say, I've reached my build audience?
You never reach it.
Yeah.
Was it a
you
Or
never-
where you move out, you say, right now I'm focused on building the audience. I'm assuming at some point then you're gonna focus on revenue. How big does the audience need to get before you switch?
At what
Can I-
point will Pay let you go get money?
Yeah, how big does the audience need to get
Won't we
before
have
she
to
gets
pay?
a check?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I've heard someone say that about 1,000 downloads per episode in a short period of time is a good gauge of when to start shopping for sponsors. Go ahead.
Michael O'Neill, he got to about 2,000 before he started shopping. But my thought also, in this process, you want to pay attention to what question come toward you. Because the reason, one thing that contributed to John Lee Dumas setting up this webinar, people ask him how he did it. And Joel gets email, okay, how did you book the A-list guests? How did you rack the ratings? So pay attention. When people start asking questions, they may not be the product you want to develop, but if they ask you, think about, hey, what can I do with these?
Right. What I put on Facebook the other day, don't fight listener feedback. Work with it. You know, process that for a second. Don't fight your listener feedback, but work with it. So what that really means in layman's terms, so I can understand it, is they may not get the message that I'm trying to send, but I could do two things with that. I could meet them in the middle, meet them where they are, and form a friendship, partnership, get a listener, or I could try to impose my view, or try to get them to see my way, which you and I both know that that's what's going to happen. We all know how frustrating that can be. But don't fight listener feedback, but to work with it.
Just to paraphrase what you're saying listen to your audience. They will tell you what they need or want.
Well, these are, some of them could be the audience response, because we had a guy tweeted, he wrote his own tweet, said, leader, learner, and who have a dream, listen to this podcast. We're like, great, that's interesting. They hear that in our show, so we pay attention. But you know, there are other podcasters watch us and they say, hey, they may not even ever listen to our show, but because of all these activities we've done on social media, they say, hey, how did you get that?
So you could create a product for them.
We did, but in the beginning, we were like, okay, we don't have the time to answer every email, but so we recorded a value-packed audio download so they can opt in and we can collect their emails.
And that's fyvradio.com/win.
WIN.
WIN, fyvradio.com/win. That's our opt-in. We did a 45-minute podcast with another podcaster, and we kind of laid out all of our tips and tricks that we did. And if you don't want to do the opt-in, just email me. Okay. I want to respect everybody's time. What else can we talk about? Who else needs questions?
Just you touched on a couple of times. Can you talk a little bit about how you get some of the big guests?
Some of the big guests?
Yeah. How do you lure them onto your show?
Absolutely. Okay. This is a great question. How do you book A-list guests? And this is actually one of my favorite topics.
Oh boy.
If you've got another hour or so.
Here's the deal. Everybody needs publicity. Everybody needs publicity. Everybody. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Chris Brogan. I don't care if you're Jamie Tardy, if you're Darren Hardy, whomever you are. Everyone needs publicity. And I know that. And I'm willing to offer that to people. And that's the number one thing that you can do for influencers. You can give them the opportunity to be influential. Because that's what influencers want. They want the opportunity to be influential. And they will be on your show if it's easy. And if it's a Skype or a phone call, where they can be in their fuzzy bunny slippers with no makeup and no shaving, and they can do a quick audio podcast for 15, 20 minutes, yeah, it didn't come much easier than that. But to answer your question, I don't know any better, so I just reach out to people. You can go to their contact page, and usually the email is there. Sometimes people even put their phone number there. They need publicity. Everyone needs publicity.
Here's something, can I jump in
Yes.
real quick? I know here's one thing, the mentality you approach the people before the conversation, I think really helps, because the other person on the other side of the phone could feel that this guy is offering me a platform, rather than, can I ask you a favor? You know, it really depends on your attitude, how you approach this upcoming conversation.
Right.
The other thing, I mean, I wouldn't use that word sneaky, but if there's a website and there's a contact form, you usually don't use that. For example, I forgot who you interviewed, and there's a domain, and you didn't have his direct contact. You just put his first name there.
That's right.
Put the domain, and sure enough, it's that guy's personal email. So he skipped all the assistance and so.
And most people these days are their first name at their full name, straight up. Most people are, or it's their full name at Gmail. That's another thing that I've learned. But yeah, I just email. Some people, I've called people, and I've been surprised at the people that have actually answered their phone. And I say, "Do you want to be on my show?" Sure.
You ever tried to book the phone?
I have not. Is that easy?
Someone will call anybody. Oh my gosh.
It's easy, isn't it?
It's embarrassing.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, like, on TV, you see it on Fox, you watch Fox.
Oh, stop.
Yeah. She wrote the book about the Obamacare stuff.
That's even
Okay.
cooler.
That's even cool.
Did you have her?
Good for you.
It's easy. So if you think that they're too busy, they're not. They are not. I've done podcasts with guys on their morning walk. Remember John was out walking his dog in Colorado? And I mean, I've done that. I've done podcasts with people on the way to the airport. You know, if they're sitting in a hotel room, they don't have anything to do. So if you're hesitant about that, please put that out of your mind, because people need publicity. I know I keep saying that, but it's true, especially if they have something coming up. And A-listers always have something coming up. And if you can find that out on the front end, then you're gold.
So
Like Sally Hogshead just published her book, which immediately went to New York Times. And I knew that several months back. So I just kept dripping on her person. And eventually, they're like, sure, of course, because they need to sell books. And so the timing was right there. Yes, sir?
On that facet, or what are you using to make that happen when they're walking their dog? Is that Skype, or are you using Skype, or they're on the phone?
We prefer Skype, because that's the best connection. But I pretty much am lenient. If people can, you know, I'm going to make it easy, third grade simple. You know, some people are a little more strict on Skype. I'm not, because I want to be the easiest podcaster in the world to work with. And I tell people that. And I even say that in the email communications. I say, you will find us to be the easiest podcasters in the world to work with. And that's at the great tone.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
as far as that goes, I meet them where they are. If it's a cell phone, it's
Oh,
a
yeah,
cell
for sure.
phone, if it's home, you know, the best is the best, but if they'll talk with you, you record them.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
And technically, how do you do that? Is that using Skype on the dial out?
We have what is that called? The phone box,
phone box.
where I push.
That's as much as he knows.
You know, true story. True story.
It's called-
The phone will ring. Hold on. True story. The phone will ring, and then at 11:25, and a look of panic happened Friday. Came over my face because the phone wasn't plugged in to our Mackie slide board, and I mean that's how technically knowledgeable I am. And luckily, pay saved the day, but we do have a phone. What is it?
I call J some box. One of you, I'm sure, I totally forgot his name.
Yeah. But you can get a Skype number. Did you? Yeah, you asked me that. You can get a Skype number, and I know people.
Yeah, that's what I have. It's like $30 a year, and then you can dial out to anybody. And I just dial them out.
Yeah.
That way you get the good quality connection on your side, and
For
it
sure.
reaches out to them.
Good.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any advice or any kind of instructions on how to get on other people's websites, maybe locally, or do you have any?
How to get on the website, or how to get
sorry,
on
on their podcast? And
ask.
Just ask them.
Ask everybody. Everyone's
looking for
PR. And everyone needs guests. Everyone needs guests. So what I would do is I would figure out what the value that you can bring to them, to the listeners, and let that be what you say.
And
So
here's-
instead of just saying, love to be on your show, you frame it to where, love to be on your show, this is what I can offer your audience. Because the first question will be, what do you want to talk about? And you can say, well, I've got this great idea for whatever.
Bentley.
Oh, I was just gonna say, or you could go to a podcast meetup and ask the presenter how to get on people's show, and all these people will actually be on the show.
Your calendar's about to be full.
I'd like to thank Joel. Let's be around to answer questions for everybody. Some of us I need to be in bed in about 35 minutes, but I'll be a funny guy. But Joel and Pay, thank you very, very much. I really enjoyed that. I think all of us. Before we break up, I've got a couple things that I meant to mention before. Our next meeting is going to be very different from this one. We've got Mark Mason. I don't know how many of you are familiar with him. He has a podcast called Late Night Internet Marketing. He did a podcast a couple of weeks ago that Gary and I both independently were nuts about, where he talked, it's like episode 79, where he talked about affiliate marketing, except what he really talks about is how most people who are trying to make money doing this or whatever online don't make any money. In other words, it's the hard, cold truth for a lot of people. That doesn't mean, this isn't a thing to discourage people, it's just a kind of give people, Mark's been doing this podcast for a while. Like I said, it's episode 79. He's making money on his podcast doing affiliate marketing. I don't know how much money he's making. It's not his full-time gig, but he is making money at it. And he brings a very unique perspective, and I wanted him, this podcast was so different from what I'm hearing from so many other entrepreneurial internet marketing type podcasts. I really wanted him to come and talk about that, because I think we can all get something useful from it. Like I said, it's not a negative throw cold water on it, but it's more of a reality check for some people, because it takes work. You're not going to be able to go out there and be successful doing a podcast or an online business without really doing the work. And I think a lot of people have this idea that they can just go out there and I'll set up my website and I've got the keywords, I'll set up a pay-per-click or something, and the money will start rolling in. The other thing that I meant to do, this is our chance, this kind of goes with what Joel was saying, this is our chance to ask each other questions too. Like, I've got a new podcast and I'm interviewing people who create science fiction. And by science fiction, I mean they're artists or musicians, or maybe they do special effects, or they do costumes, or maybe they're an actor. So if you do something like that, all right, biographer. If you do something like that, or you know someone, I'm looking for guests for my podcast. I already have some people lined up. So if you know people who are really interested in science fiction, if they're not actively creating something, they've got friends who do. So if you could, I'm just taking advantage of this audience. And I think some of you, did you have a question you wanted to ask the group?
James did already.
Or James already asked the question? So anyway, we've got this big group. Does anyone have any questions they want to ask the rest of the group? Or maybe, like I said, they might be looking for guests for a podcast. They might be looking for a resource for a podcast. Maybe somebody to help you with your website. Or Christian?
Yes, I've talked to those people here 3 or 4 times about this, but I have a podcast I'm about to launch, and I'm looking for people that are using any sort of automation with your business at all. Specifically, I love the if this then that service. So if you have some ways of tying things together, making magic happen, I'd love to talk to you. And if
Can I have you on my show then to talk about that?
absolutely.
Yay! See, I mean,
I haven't talked about it yet.
there's no telling how many good guests we have in this room, or how many people know someone who'd be a good guest on somebody else's show. I want the community to help each other out, so we can all have better podcasts and be more successful in what we're doing.
I have something.
Sure.
I'm a software developer, so I'm trying to make tools to make podcasting easier. So if you have any complaints about how painful it is to podcast, come to me. Some of the things I'm working on to see if anyone's interested is something that'll give you your new and noteworthy rankings, and maybe even take a screenshot if you get in new noteworthy and send it to you. And every time you change up in the rank and shoot your screenshot, stuff like that. Also track your rankings, in iTunes, your word rankings, because some people do keywords when you do searches. We can track your rankings there and give you flowcharts and stuff. So,
Creating apps and software online.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so stuff like that. So if but I'm starting and doing stuff in beta. So if you wanna, if you have something you need, or you wanna be a beta partner with me, just come find me.
And on our Facebook group, you can post, say, hey, I've got a new podcast I'm going to be launching. Anybody wants to help me, like Joel was talking about, that's totally fair, as long as you're just spamming the group, and we're all spamming. By spamming, I mean in a friendly way. But if you've really got something that you want to, like I said, you're going to be doing a podcast launch or something kind of cool. I'm all for the group help, for the community helping each other out. So.
Is there a Facebook group for Podcast Dallas?
No, we should. I'll make one tomorrow. I'll make one tomorrow and
luckily
post it.
Gary's got nothing else to do.
I'll make it tomorrow morning and post it on the meetup group so everybody can join. And we can use that as a place to, maybe we can, I think he has some great ideas. Maybe we can be our own team. That whenever someone here does something, the rest of us help each other, push it out there. So, I mean, you've got a team of people who some are beginners, some are real big podcasters that can help you out.
Wouldn't that be too easy?
Never too easy.
If you do the Facebook, I'll upload all of our files. Does anybody want that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, I'll do it tomorrow. I heard that might do it. I may do it tonight.
I'll upload the files.
And that group, I mean, there's almost 100 people in this group.
Do we have an art person here? Someone make me a header tomorrow? You make me a header for tomorrow? Okay.
Would that be a private group? Or?
Yeah, it'd be, well, I'll make it private. We can always undo it. I don't know what we want to do. What do you think we should do? I mean, it's our group. It's not mine. I mean, I'm not doing it for me.
I say start private for now.
Yeah, because it's like to help us. I mean, I don't mind helping everybody, but I think we want to concentrate on helping us all grow this instead of having so many people in there who goes, yeah, I'm getting out of there. I got people from Hong Kong want me to help them. Now I can help this many people. I think it's limited on how many people you can help.
Right.
So I say let's use this group as a tool for this group. So that's good. And if you'll send me an image for the header, I'll just plunk it on there when we.
Anybody else have a question or announcement they want to make about what they're doing, or you can save it for the group, the Facebook group tomorrow.
Yeah, and then we can also post.
We'll send an email out to everybody
on our Facebook page too about our upcoming. Because some people like using it more than Meetup.
Oh, doing a Facebook event.
Yeah, because I like Facebook a lot better than Meetup personally.
Yeah. Anything else? Like I said, Joel's still around. You guys want to talk for a little?
No, if anyone wants to give me $30 before they leave, that's something you can think about too.
I only had 20.
I'll make a budget to go.
Thanks, guys.